Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of Life After DD214. Today, I have Mike Carranza with me. Mike, how are you doing?
Good. Exhausted, but good.
Exhausted. Yeah, that sounds like 36, doesn't it?
36 hits hard. 36 is
Indeed.
not 26. It's not 16.
You know what? That's fair. Now that I'm nearly 40,
I
I'm
think
no longer able to move as I used to.
I think 2 kids under 4 is the same as like a chronic back injury. Like it's just like you're wiped out all the time.
Should be service connected, right?
I definitely should be getting compensated.
That's
Maybe that's
fair.
what taxes are for. I don't know. We'll find out if I get the credits for it.
Who knows? So, anyway, Mike, welcome to the podcast. And you are
Yeah.
the very first guest. I really appreciate you coming on.
I worked hard to secure that.
Yeah,
We
you
got a
did.
lot of people.
Yeah. Mike, tell me a little bit about yourself.
A weird background. Educationally, behavioral health and psychology focused. Career wise, done pretty much everything. Spent a lot of time in different areas of the medical field. Worked in a Mexican restaurant at some point, taught English, and that's a rough industry right now. I'd rather take Afghanistan again than do
Oh,
another
that's
year in the
fair.
classroom. It was rough. Yeah, I actually spent the last 5 years working at a good company doing some tech stuff. So got into software and software deployment. So it's been fun. It's been good, and it absolutely pays better than teaching. So I'll take it.
I can believe that. So, you were Army, and what brought you into the Army, and when did that happen?
About 2009, I had done a couple years of college, and I had taken as many loans as I could in the highest quantities I could because my mom was like, I'm not paying for it. And so she's like, if they're giving you money, just take as much as you can get. And so I got myself into a spot. And then because my buddy did it, I went to a whole different school in Georgia for a while. And then I went to another one in Dallas. But because they were private schools, they weren't keeping track of the fact that I was still enrolled. So by the time
No.
I came back to my student loans, they were like, you've been out of school forever, dude. You haven't been paying. So I had delinquent and defaulted loans. So I was broke, working at Academy unloading trucks and stuff. So yeah, I didn't have money to pay for that, but I wanted to go back to school. I was like, dude, if I stop now, I'm going to end up like all these other dudes I went to school with, like manager Radio Shack. Yeah. I'm like, oh, dude, no. As I just couldn't. I couldn't see myself in a job like that. So I kept looking at my options. And my stepdad, because he thought it was funny, would grab flyers from the Army and start putting them in the windshield wipers of my car. Thought it was funny. And I said, hey, can you give me a ride? And he was where? I was like, recruiting station. And so we went, and he's like, we're still joking, right? I was like, let's see, right? Let's see what they've got. And sure enough, I found the MOS I liked, and I said, this is pretty cool. I was like, but you got to come with me because we're talking to mom tomorrow, and we're bringing her here.
Right.
And that went terribly, as you'd imagine. Yeah, we got in. We didn't actually talk about it, the fact that I was leaving until I left. And then the same thing happened before Afghanistan. She's like, we're not going to talk about it until the day you leave. I was like, geez, that's unhealthy.
Yeah.
That's real unhealthy.
What was your MOS?
68 X-ray, behavioral health specialist.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So did command consultations. I did classroom style education. I did like unit behavioral readiness stuff. Like I'd go around to different units while deployed in Afghanistan. Just quick interviews, everybody good, morale boosting stuff, but also if there's somebody I need to talk to that's struggling, let me get in there with them for a few minutes. A lot of that stuff.
Did you ever work with dogs?
We did have a therapy dog. He got promoted. He was Sergeant First Class Timmy. And then because of the handler, he has to outrank his handler by 1 rank. That's the thing, so that you treat him with the respect. So he got put with a captain. So he became Major Timmy. Super big upgrade.
Wow. Yeah.
Major Timmy got a lot of props for that and got a lot of snacks. So they actually ended up having to put him on a PT program. And so it's really sad because they're like, we got a thing for you. We're like, sorry, dude. Major Timmy is on hold for all those snacks. And
he's on profile.
Dude, I outrank you, dude. You do push-ups and give me snacks. It was bad.
It's going to be
but he was really cool. People loved him.
Yeah. Yeah, I only remember because when I was in Afghanistan, we had a therapy dog show up. And I'm working in the talks, so anything and everything comes through me. And so this therapy dog shows up out of the blue, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is happening.
We have a really good habit of not letting anyone know we're showing up when we do stuff like that. And my company now does it. It's really weird. They've done therapy dogs in different locations, like at the DC office, but they don't tell people they're coming. So it's really nice and great, except for the one person who's terrified of dogs, like my wife. She would just immediately like lose it and be like, I'm going home now.
Gotta go.
Yeah. So it's like 99.9%. It's a great idea. gotta send an email that people know, because it can just send one person's day spiraling out.
That's true.
To take
So
those.
so how long were you in the Army?
Scheduled for 4, with 4 inactive reserves. Got out 3 and 8 months or 7 months to do separation to further education. So I
Okay.
put in a packet to get out a couple months early so I didn't miss the school year starting, because I was on post 9/11. So I was going to get paid to go to school, and it was going to pay my rent. So I was like, dude, I need to go to school now or I'm going to come out and be homeless. And so it went all the way up to brigade commander and post commander, and they signed off on it and said, soldier no longer has inactive ready reserve obligation. So I was out, and I was completely out.
Oh, that's
Dude,
awesome.
you can't buy him enough beers for that. That's a really good thing. You never
So
have to worry about the Army again.
that's true. So the particular method of getting out of the military is definitely not conventional.
Now, 5-20, is it 18 or 20? One of those two. A lot of paperwork. You had to have record PT tests. You had to have all kinds of service background. Like, dude, is he actually a good soldier? Is he like some garbage dude you're getting rid of? So, yeah, you had to prove a lot of stuff.
Okay.
It took us a few months to get it totally ironed out.
Okay, so this is I'm getting out so that I can go to school
Yeah.
way.
Not
So
just
where
wasting time, not just don't want to be here, but
Right.
I need to do something urgently.
Right. And so where did you end up going to school this time?
So I had been in so many different schools. I tell my wife, I was like, dude, it took me like 8 years to get a bachelor's. But I used to tell her, I was in school for 8 years. I deserve the respect of a doctor. And she was like, I think you're actually considered learning disabled at this point. So it didn't give me a lot of respect at home.
Well,
But
it
I
also
actually am
doesn't
a
help that
vascular.
your wife is super smart.
My wife is the smartest person in the room, but you'll never know until you've said something stupid. And so I am like a mind sweeping dog. Like, I'm going to say the stupid thing every time.
There you go. There you
But
go.
I called her, I didn't call her out of the blue. Where you been? No, we dated long distance for most of the time I was in the military. That's like the core of our relationship, was me being gone. It's probably why it worked, to be honest with you. But we saw each other twice a year, which is really good for someone like me. I could be a little much. But we stuck together. And then I said, you're still how far from finishing? She's like, I'll be done at the end of the year. I said, where? And she goes, Texas A&M. I said, oh, that's fancy. And she goes, Kingsville. I said, okay.
Not
It's
as fancy.
It's rural. It's like right where the King Ranch is. It's a lot of cowboy for that low in Texas.
Gotcha.
Garbage education in the program I went. I'm not gonna say the school sucks. School's fine. Her education and engineering program was fantastic. Psychology program was hot garbage. It was bad.
Okay.
But I got the degree.
Nice. Well, hey, and that's why you got out, right?
Oh yeah.
So what was the deciding factor for you to want to get out and pursue this degree?
So I never wanted to stay in the military. As soon as I was there, day one, they were like, everybody get up, let's go. And I didn't. I stayed in bed sleeping. And I was one of like 2 people that did that. And so as soon as they came back in to check to see how everyone was doing, I just immediately, they were like, soldier, you disgust me. I was like, okay.
Yeah. So
I'm not going to do much with that.
They say that the military isn't for everyone. Just definitely feel like it wasn't for you.
Yeah. Every time I see people that I served with that I were like, dude, you are like the worst soldier. I was like, you don't get the game at all. Like, I saw you not even able to put your boots on right. And now they're like E7s. And I'm like, you guys are, what in the world? How'd you survive? And it's because they played the game. There's a point where you're like, if I just turn all this off, I feel great. I'm not there. And so I can't turn it off. So I was like, this sucks. I want to be somewhere else. Next step so we can get there. And so the whole time I was there, I was dying to get out. And as soon as I got out, I was like, can I go back? I tell my wife every day, I was like, I'd go back to Afghanistan. She goes, your kids aren't that bad. We're just in Target shopping. I was like, send me back.
I understand.
Cashier, I want to re-enlist.
No.
They're like, we don't do that.
Definitely, no, that's not happening.
They're like, for a credit card? I was like, no, 4 years, you can have it.
So, all right, so you're out of the military, you're finishing up your degree in psychology, and then so my question now is, did you use the GI Bill in order to go to the school? Okay, so
yeah,
you were receiving some sort of like some monetary compensation.
Yeah, so I got out using the post 9/11 GI Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I finished the rest of what was probably a couple years of schooling. One of the semesters I had to cram in there because certain stuff didn't transfer across schools, and especially because all my credits were to UT system, and this was Texas A&M. So they were just, it's like iPod and Android. They're just not going to work well together, or iPhone, whatever you guys call it. But yeah, so I had a lot of stuff that didn't transfer, so I was taking like 21-hour semesters. I took 6 language classes in one semester, and
Oh
it was
man.
a nightmare on the brain, dude. It was poetry and novel, 2, psychology of language, Spanish 4, French 1, and there's another thing. It was just brutal, dude. Like, I didn't want to talk to people. I was like, no more human.
No kidding.
It was bad.
Especially trying to do it in multiple languages.
Yeah, there's no way. It
Just throw
sucks,
Latin
but
in there too, just to round it
might as
out.
well. Might as well. I speak Spanish. It's close enough. But yeah, I was working in a coffee shop, so doing all the cool barista stuff, and
Hmm.
then a little mom and pop place, not a chain. So I was doing that, and so that was my spending money, and then everything else was just paying for rent. And I had an apartment literally right over my girlfriend's apartment at the time, and so her parents would come by and be like, "So you're just like living with her, right?" I'm like, "No, I have a place. You want to go see my place? It's cool." And I had to make it look lived in.
Yeah, yeah. There's a camping chair over there.
I was like, "You don't see the chair? Obviously, I live here."
Yeah, like there's a mattress and it's an air mattress,
Yeah,
but it's on the ground. It's fine.
it was wild. But the post 9/11 is awesome though. Getting paid monthly while you're in school full time is just awesome, and you can
Yeah.
still work. There's no limitation on that. So depending on where you are and what you're doing, it was like 1,800 a month.
Hmm.
And so when you're in school and you've got your rent covered with it, with that, and you can, you make how much doing coffee? You make almost nothing, but you can buy yourself a snack once in a while.
Yeah.
Took my
So
girlfriend to Chili's, real fancy.
indeed, indeed, sir. And so now you're about to graduate, or you're graduating. You know that this post 9/11 GI Bill is about to stop giving you some money. So now you got to transition out of that lifetime or out of that life and into the civilian world, into the real world. What was that transition like for you?
So much, much, much worse because of the field I chose. Psychology in the military is like, we don't care what your background is, just go ahead and do it, and we'll just kind of fill in the gaps with a professional who has a license behind you. And so you'll be seeing patients downrange and kind of counseling them a little bit, and then you'll talk to the doctor and say, here's what I'm thinking, talk to her, but this is what I'm seeing.
Hmm.
But back in the civilian sector, you can't see somebody without a master's and a license. It takes like at least a year or two of supervision. And so I would have easily spent another 3 to 4 years just getting licensed to see patients and then be like, oh, do I like this or not? I don't know. So I couldn't. I said, well, let me see what I can do with the bachelor's. And so I started working at a rehab, drug and
Okay.
alcohol, not even counseling. I was just a tech. So walking around, making sure they had towels, making sure they had stuff they needed. And I would run like group therapy. Mind you, I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. So for me to be like, hey, man, I know it's tough. And they say, do you? Do you at all? And so having to do jobs like that with drug dealers driving around the parking lots threatening to kill us because one of our guys snuck out and robbed them during a drug deal that went wrong.
Hmm.
It got bad. I mean, I had someone stuck with a dirty needle from a client. And so it's like, dude, we've got to get out of here. So thankfully, my wife has more sense than me, and she's an engineer, she's an architectural engineer. So she went straight to doing some estimating work for a company that designed custom lockers for like sports arenas and stuff. So
Awesome.
weirdly specific, but she was doing that for a while. But as soon as she got that job, I was like, cool, I'm going to take a second look for something else. And so I quit my job and I was unemployed for like 9 months.
Hmm.
So not the right move when you're young and newly married to be unemployed and broke. But I
Yeah, I
tried
bet
it.
that was pretty scary.
It sucked. I started psyching myself up. I'm like, no, here's how you do it. You put on khakis, you put on a nice shirt, you fix your hair, and then you go sit in Corner Bakery in Dallas and you sit there and you job hunt. I was like, but because you're dressed up, you're going to take it seriously. No, you're
How
not.
did Okay.
It
I was
didn't.
gonna say because like I feel like that is actually something that a lot of these transition specialists, as you could call them, would tell you. Like actually dress for a job interview, even though all you're gonna do is
Mhm.
job hunt. Which, by the way, I'm sure that you can probably agree with me that when you're on the hunt for a job, that is your full time job.
Yeah, I know people that play video games all day and they said, well, I put in an application today. What do you want? I'm like, dude, that's crazy. Like my brother he was unemployed. He went from making about 190 to 250 in Denver to all of a sudden nothing. And I was like, dude, that's a big drop. That's a real big drop. He was on the hunt for a while. It was at least about 6 months, but he just got hired. He just started this week, so it's awesome.
Well,
But
congratulations to him.
he was putting in a ton of apps. So that was a tough job to find. Right now, it's a terrible market. It is absolutely on the higher. They have all the power right now. So they had him strung along for 5-6 round interviews, and then they just go with someone else. It's like, oh, gosh, brutal.
Yeah, that definitely sounds brutal, especially in the tech space where you and I are in. I know for
Mhm.
a fact that we've had a lot of candidates come through, and by the sixth round, they're burnt out already
Mhm.
just on
Yeah.
the interview process. And then if they get the offer letter, then they pretty much say
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. You just want to shake and be like, dude, give me an answer. I'd rather hear no than another round of interviews.
That's
Goodness.
true. That's also true. And how did you deal with that? Like with all that kind of going on, and I know that this is a different time now versus then, but there's a lot of similarity, would you say?
Yeah. And so my brother is more stubborn than me, but he's also more disciplined than me. So he
Hmm.
can make himself spend the whole morning. He's like, I'm not going to touch a video game, not going to watch YouTube, nothing until I put in 6, 7 apps. I've reached out to people I know. I've gone on LinkedIn and pinged recruiters. Like he was moving. And so
Hmm.
with me, I put in like 3 apps for the day and said, I think this is kind of what I want to do. And then just the rest of the day is mine. And so I was like, well, and this is back in 2020. Nope, not that far, not that recent. This is 2017. That's when I was struggling. I was unemployed, and so trying to find something. Then I just got burnt out, and I said, I'll look for something. I'll apply for something, and I stopped moving on it. And so my wife's boss at that locker company, they said, "Does your husband still not have a job?" She said, "No." He's like, "Put him in the warehouse. I don't care." And so they gave me some manual labor, and that's an eye opener for someone like me. Like I went to
Okay.
school so I wouldn't have to work hard. Like I didn't
Physically
want to
hard.
be working weekends. I didn't want to be sweating. I go to the gym and I'm like, why do I have to sweat? Ugh. Like, I'm that dude. Once I get
Hmm.
started, it's fine. But so I'm doing manual labor. It's all in Spanish. There's no more English. So I doubled down. It's like triple Rosetta Stone. It was awesome.
Yeah, yeah. French
It
one
was,
definitely helped.
dude, that's peppered in there. But I mean, it was really awesome. So I got all this experience in a field I'll never want to work in again. And so I was like,
Hmm.
man, this is an official waste of time. And so I said, how do I get out of here? And I said, oh, well, you have to get a job, idiot. This is what you're doing. You don't have work. This is your job. So I said, do I hate this enough to get moving? And sure enough, yes.
Well,
And
there
so
you go.
immediately got a hold of some people I knew. I said, oh, I'm teaching, but I'm out of the classroom now. I'm doing this. And I started grading tests for a state test company. Like they were doing standardized assessments, like STAR tests and stuff. And I started doing that, and it was all retired teachers. And then from there, I got into teaching.
Interesting. So you came in and you started grading papers, like grading standardized tests. That's I've never heard
It's a
that
weird
method
in.
before.
It's a
Yeah.
weird way to get your foot in the door because in every field, you're just like, dude, if I can just get in, then I'll meet somebody, or then I'll try to work my way around. I don't know if it's like you have to have charisma to do this. It just seems like you just do it. You get in the field, and you're like, yeah, I've been in this field for like 6 months. So like nobody really asks, what'd you do though? They
Hmm.
just go, oh, you're in education. Yeah, we need a teacher. Like so, you just get a foot in the door. That's what I wanted to do with tech for so long. I just didn't know how. I literally don't even know what RAM is. I have no idea. Someone's like, how much RAM? I'm like, oh, it's a Subaru. And they're like, what? It's
Oh yeah,
yeah.
definitely
People are,
two different things.
is he okay? So yeah, I absolutely. But I finally got into tech, of course. But from the outside, I was like, dude, getting into an industry is almost impossible if you don't have a connection or you don't know somebody. It's really tough.
So I think you brought up a really good point just then. It's that especially like trying to get your first job outside of the military, or in your case, like your first job at any point in transition. And it's like you got to know somebody to get your foot in the door. Well, you don't have to, but it is very helpful.
It's hard to do it like because you're competing with this ridiculous amount of people, and depending on how the market's doing, there was only a small time where there's a shortage of people who had availability to work. Sorry, there was a surplus. I'm sorry, people who wanted to work and they just didn't have any jobs for them, or the other way
Right.
around, they had jobs. And they're like, "Where are all the people? They're just sitting around. It's fine." But so feel out the market, but it's weird because you're almost always, if you go the traditional route and just keep putting out feelers and see what happens, you really have to somehow stand out, and
Hmm.
it's extremely difficult. You can have a killer resume, it just has to look like something they've never seen before, or you have to lie, just be like 6 years, dude. They're like, how, when? You're like, I did something adjacent to that for 6 years. They're like, but you were at the Taco Bell. And they're like, yeah, it's customer relations. It's it's business development. And then you start just transitioning to something else. And they're like, I don't know if you did that.
Making the words fit.
Yeah. Yeah. I conduct monthly team building, problem solving workshops. It's like, no, you play Dungeons and Dragons. It's different.
I mean, it is team building and it is collaborative.
I'm the DM. I try to kill the team.
Well, there you go. Okay, and so you're in the warehouse and you're saying to yourself, "This is not what I want to do with
But I'm saying it
the
in
next
Spanish.
tomorrow. I don't want to do it." You're saying it in Spanish. I don't even want to do this anymore. And so I know where you and I met, and I'm trying to get. I want to see everything right up until that point.
It was a wild ride. When I tried education and bombed, and I just couldn't stick with it, and I said, "Man, there's got to be something else that I want to do." And I said, "What's creative and challenging and exciting?" And I said, "Dude, digital marketing is the future. It's going to be sweet." I didn't know what that was. I still don't know what that is. It sounds cool. I just don't want to do sales. I'm not competitive. I don't care if the company fails. I don't care. I just want to do something cool and challenging and creative. And I said, well, if I'm not writing novels, I at least want to come up with cool new ideas and challenge myself. And so I was like, well, how do you do that? I said, I think they're looking for like people who've had giant social media following since they were like 13. Like, check out my outfit and my eyelashes. And you're like, I can't compete with a young girl in social media. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And so I was like, well, there's schools for that. And I tried it and I went to one and I interviewed and I said, hey, what's up with this school? It's like, you teach marketing stuff? And they're like, yeah, we give you assignments and you do them. I was like, give me homework. Yeah. And they said, do you help me get a job? And they said, no, that's on you. And I said, this is a lot of money. It's like, how much are you actually doing? They're like, we give you the assignments and we help you build your portfolio. I was like, those are already online. I can do assignments on my own. Like, that's crazy. And I said, marketing helps people see the value in things, right? And they said, yeah. I said, why can't I see the value in your company at all? I was like, can you help me see the value? And some girl's like, you'd love it. Try it. I said, no, I don't try things for $30,000, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a pretty penny.
And so I talked to them and I was looking them in the eyes. I was like, I'm missing the value. Can you help me see it? And they're like, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, then your program doesn't work. Sorry, dude. And so it was at that point where I was like, data science, that's challenging and exciting. I got close to data science and then was like, let's see, what else? And then full stack web development showed up. And I said, well, it's in tech, it's close enough, and I'm sure there's something where you're not just coding all day. And so that's how I ended up at Coda. And I realized they took the GI Bill and I still had some left and I had enough just to cover it. And so I could spend the time and I can pay for the courses without bankrupting myself first. And that's the only reason I did it, honestly. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't pretty much free.
Right. And that's a very good reason to do it, especially in your situation. Granted, your wife definitely makes a lot more than you do. But at that point, still, you still want to be able to provide at least something other than just acting like a mooch. But so you left teaching, and we didn't really touch upon that, but you taught English.
I taught English, 8th grade English. The first year I was a co-teacher is what they called it. The first year I was there, foot in the door. They said, you can teach, but you're not getting a salary, and you're not doing curriculum. You're not doing lesson planning. You're doing computer lab math, and you're just supervising them. And then you're tracking every single kid out of like 130, their progress towards a goal, and diagramming it and having it on all these displays and data spreadsheets. And you're always able to provide these reports at a moment's notice and guide each kid in their pathway as tailored to their skill level and present that at any time. I said, well, that's great. And I did it. By the time I was done with it, I was getting like top in the district for my scores for Q3. And I said, man, this is really good. And I had a background doing like math tournaments as a kid. And so it was fine. I didn't have any issues with the coursework. So I was able to teach them all this stuff. And it was 6th and 7th grade. We did great. And then I went to teach. And man, I guess I'm not the type to ask for help, but I am the type to flounder until I die. So I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, like, how do you all know how to teach? What's going on? Like, who taught you guys? Did I miss day one or something? And so I just failed repeatedly. And at no point was anyone like, are you good? Do you need help? And so because I'm not I need help person, I just kind of let it run into the ground. And I said, hey, we're coming to the end of the year. And not only am I not ready, all these kids are not ready for these tests. They're all going to fail. I was like, I got to get out of here.
Got it.
And so I just told them, I said, hey, you guys are struggling in the hotspot, the math lab, right? And I said, yeah. I said, I can do that. And they're like, well, it's not your same salary. I said, no, I understand that. And so I went from about 50,000 to 15 an hour.
Okay.
And so that was a drop.
Yeah.
And I took it. I said, this is fine. And my students would literally walk past me in the hallway and they would all say, traitor, traitor, traitor. And I was like, okay. It was every day. My English class would just walk right past me and say it. I was like, guess I need a job, dude.
Yeah.
gotta pay bills.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so I
Exactly.
stepped out of the role and said, this is not for me. I got to get out of here. And that's when I started looking. And I thought data analytics, because that's what I had just been doing the whole year. It's just tracking all this data and mapping it out.
Hmm.
But took a turn again.
Well, that makes sense. Like you're in the doing data analytics, and at the time, the coding boot camp that you and I met at did not have data science.
It
They just
literally
did.
was like right after us too. And I said,
Yeah,
man, I should have stuck it out.
we were a month away from graduating when they brought in like the first data science class,
Yeah,
and we were.
it was, should have stuck around for it, honestly. I haven't used any of the languages we learned at all. I do a little bit of Linux stuff, and that's it.
That's fair. So, just so the audience knows, let's talk about your our time at CodeUp, and let's just I'll let you run through it, just what we did and all of that, because no one wants to hear from me. Everyone wants to hear from you.
It was a crash course. I mean, I literally took one day off, and I still to this day don't know how arrow functions work because I
Okay.
literally missed that one time. And I've seen it come up like once in my career, and I was like, no, I missed it. But it was just every day we're going to do part of one subject, part of one language, and it was quick JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Java,
Hmm.
and we just ran through, read a little bit, did a little exercise, guided, and then just hey, take 2.5 hours and make something nice, and then you would
Right.
do it, come back and present it, and say this is fine, this is great, and then nowhere near professional quality, nothing that an employer would ever accept, but it was more like you did a thing, cool.
Yeah.
It's like when
I
my
would
kid hands me.
I would say like towards in the first half, nothing the employer would really want, but like our portfolio is
We
kind
built
of
up.
just being built, and
Yeah,
then.
I mean, based, compared to where we came from, dude, yeah,
Mhm.
anything I was producing was just like, whoa, I did this. And I was showing my brother, and he's like, okay. And his degree's in computer science, and he's been doing it for a while. He's like, you did a thing. Yeah, it looks hideous, but it looks like it works. I said, yeah, decorated or anything. He's like, I know.
Exactly. Like, yeah, well, give us a sec. It's like that's next week's lesson.
It kind of works.
Yeah, but it works. And then towards the end there we had to do a project. Capstone
Yeah,
project basically.
capstone.
Let's talk about your capstone project.
So ours, we called it Our Pueblo, I think we called it, or something like that. It was basically a web scraper that would go through the city of San Antonio's website, and it would take a page and just scrape all the text from it, look at it, and say, "Hey, this is what it is in English," and then create a different page and say, "This is a translated version, but it's probably going to need some adjustments," and then it would be held in a little database where someone could access it, do a quick manual review, and then whatever corrections and submit it, and then it would send it back to this database where employees can say, okay, cool, we're ready to upload the Spanish version of the site, but we don't want to quickly use Google Translate, but we also don't have government employees with the skill set or the time to sit here and translate a website, which is so far out of what they do professionally, it would just be garbage anyway.
Hmm.
And so we said, here it is. If you like these translations, give it to your IT guys or give it to whoever does your websites and say, here's our content, our actual copy that is not an IT thing per se. And it's definitely not a, I work here, so I know how to put this on a website. So we're kind of bridging that gap. But yeah, using a bunch of different APIs and calling them out and storing it, having a system for has this been reviewed, has this been reviewed twice, has it been approved, or is it still in this state? And we're making a UI for it to look cool and do that. Did you see the guy approach me after our presentation?
I don't remember.
The guy approached me in a suit, had looked really nervous and upset the whole time, and he had been taking notes fervently the whole time. I was like,
Hmm.
"What's going on? Like, why are you invested?" And so he finished presenting, and the dude comes up and says, "Hey, you're with the thing, the Pueblo?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Come here." And he brought us over, and he's like, "It's not. It wouldn't work." I said, "It doesn't have to. I just got a grade for it, dude." And he's like, Here's why it's not a good idea. I don't work for you. I don't care in the least bit.
Right.
But he was like, sat there and just was like, it wouldn't work because this, and that. It's manpower. We don't want to use. It's like, we cut that back. We actually helped with that. And dude was like, he'd written it off and said, you guys are useless. I came here because I thought it was going to be a good thing for us. And it's like, you invited as a courtesy. We wanted you to see that we're doing things relevant to your workspace, adjacent. We're not trying to do your job for you.
Right. We did a lot of projects for the city of San Antonio, but they were just proof of concept
Yeah, it's a little prototype at
projects. They
best.
were, yeah, prototypes at best. We did it in 2 weeks versus,
That's true. I forget that. Yeah.
a professional team. Like we just graduated, or I'm sorry, we were just about to graduate. We did this project in 2 weeks. We just learned how to do these things 3 months ago.
Yeah.
We're still
And
we're
hadn't used
still
most of it
very
since
new.
then, right? Yeah.
And so the idea that, hey, the city of San Antonio has all of these technical tech problems that we think that you might want to try to solve. We just took it upon ourselves to say, okay, we'll give it a shot. You know, we knew for a fact that we weren't going to work for the city of San
It was,
Antonio, and if they
here is
decided
a
to,
way that someone could try to fix it.
right,
It wasn't supposed to be, here's your golden ticket. Your boss is going to love you now. No, dude, I'm trying to
right,
make your career. I'm trying to create one for myself.
exactly, and
This is the next step for me, not you.
that was the purpose of Code Up, because the big selling point for that boot camp was they were going to help you find a job after graduation,
Guaranteed.
guaranteed, money back guarantee,
Yeah.
legitimately money back
Yeah.
guarantee,
Tens of thousands of dollars back. And
right?
yeah,
And so
I think that's still written on their gravestone.
and so after we did our projects, then we also did a what they called a reverse job fair, where
Oh,
we would
yeah.
stand around at booths and
I
employers
remember
would
that.
come to us. And a lot of times that was like the city of San Antonio coming to us and saying, hey, we like, or in your case, we dislike your
Yeah. That's how they
solution.
used our time.
That's
To let us know why we missed the mark. Is that, oh, am I not a good city of San Antonio employee?
fair. And so how did you what was your results after graduation? I know you work in a tech company now, so
So it was
how did you
weird
get
for
there?
me. During my interview process, towards the last few weeks being there at Code Up, I don't know if you heard, I rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because I said out loud I didn't want to be a developer.
Mm-hmm.
People got mad.
You went
People
to a
genuinely were
you
like,
went to a web development boot camp and said, "I don't want to be a developer."
I said, there's got to be something else where I'm not just sitting there like a monkey with a Rubik's Cube all day. And they were like, excuse me, this is my life. I was like, well, maybe some of you. But there was a lot of like hatred and animosity because I said, this doesn't excite me like it does you. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a problem. Like people like were rattled about it. I said, this is a big field. If you think technology is just coding, you're out of your mind. Is it what they trained us for? Sure. Is it the Hollywood version of it? Yeah, maybe. But I got there and I went to my interview with the company I currently work with now. And I said, I don't want to be a developer personally. And they're like, did you want to test software? I was like, not particular, but I'll take a look. I mean, I want to see what you guys have. There's other roles, I'm sure. I'm sure I'd love to see what you guys have. And you're like, we're mostly looking for some coders, some developers. I said, all right, let me know. Right. That's all I can say. Let me know. And so that one fell through the first time. And someone else came by and scooped me up and they said, hey, we're a small company. We're going fast and we're growing tremendously. This will be great. And so I took the job and I showed up. And within a couple of days, they're like, I don't think we're going to need you after all. Because I think we just don't have the space for you. I said, you just told me you hit like $1 million. Like you guys just said you grew. And they're like, we're growing. You're good. And so I was asked to leave within
Mm-hmm.
like 2-3 days of being hired. And so I called back to the school and I said, dude, I just got fired. He was like, yeah, I know. That's weird. They just didn't like you. I was like, okay. I was like, that's okay. And so he goes, I'll tell you what, I've got some buddies at, my current company that said they're going to scoop somebody up, a couple of these guys here. You want me to tell them to pick you up too? I said, is that how it works? I feel like a day laborer at Home Depot. And so they're just like, trabajo? I was like, coder? I said, full
Fair,
stack?
a little bit of Java,
So yeah, little Java, poquito. And so
poquito Java.
they ended up getting me the job, and I showed up and said, great. And then you get here with a company this big, you're a cog in the machine, so you've got to kind of make your own way. And so
Mm-hmm.
you get here and you don't have a job, you don't have a role, you don't have a project. So I showed up and had to interview within the company. And I said, well, they put us in a Java boot camp for the first 2 weeks of being there,
Mm-hmm.
having just left a boot
A
camp.
Java boot camp.
Yeah. So we were just sitting there, and I was like, all right. And I was with Aziz, dude. He was in my boot camp there, and so
Oh,
we hung out.
nice.
Yeah, so it was good times. Yeah, we were just there messing around, hanging out. I taught a new joiner orientation after having been there a week. I taught the whole
Nice.
thing. Somehow ended up doing that just because I was bored. And then I found a project, interviewed for a few. And when I met my boss, who was my boss for like the first 5 years of my career, I just left that project. But I talked to him, and he said, "This isn't really a coding thing. Is that okay?" He said, "We may be able to make that work." I just wanted to hold my chips close. But he told me, he's like, "This is working between different teams to make sure things get deployed on time. They've been built properly. They're getting tested. They're making it to the right environments. And then everything's done properly leading up to a production release. And then when it's ready to go live, you're calling the shots and you're making sure each team is firing off the right way." I was like, that's really dope. And so I did that for 5 years with that dude. And I just started on a new project right now. And I'm seeing how those things are built from the ground up and those pipelines are made. And it's a lot. So I showed up when it was already ready to go. And I was just like, oh, cool. I'm a bus driver for school field trips. That's it. Well, now I'm doing the same thing, but the school hasn't even been built yet. Like, we're still building out everything. The code base isn't there. And so now I'm getting to see that from a little, more grown up perspective. But yeah, I ended up at this big company, and now I do DevOps. I specialize in that. I'm a senior
Fantastic.
software analyst with a focus in DevOps. And now it's going to be setting up Jenkins pipelines as well.
That's incredible. How do you feel you fit into this world?
Tech is good. It's weird though. Having social skills is a superpower here.
Mm-hmm.
And it shouldn't be. But there's a lot of people that they're like, we need someone to run this call. And they're like, we have 3 people that can do that. Like, this is a big project. And they're like, I know. And so I don't know what it is, but there's not a lot of people that can do that type of go between. And I was a level 11, which is, it's golf scores. So you start at 12 and you go down.
Okay.
I've met a 3, and that's incredible. She's like an important, like a political figure at that point. But I was an 11, and I was working with branch managers on the client side, like at departments in the government. And so working with them as a level 11, talking to them and saying, hey, I know this is what you want. Here's how that's going to happen. No, we can't get this done by this week. Apologies, it's not going to happen. And so having those types of crucial conversations way above my pay grade,
Mm-hmm.
and then turning around and doing high visibility deployments and stuff like that, got me this huge promotion. This last one was enormous. And it was
Oh,
because of all that
congratulations.
super high visibility work. Yeah, appreciate it. It was a giant raise, and it was a lot of fun, but it was really because of that super high visibility work, which is what comes with doing something apart from the rat race that everyone else was doing.
Okay.
And so as a coder, I'd be in the same boat as everyone else. But now, because I'm a hybrid, I'm an expert at one thing that nobody does. Like when I was behavioral health in the military, nobody did that really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always nice for me to operate kind of just outside of the rat race and just make my own career path being an expert at something that's rare and it's a valuable commodity.
Yeah.
And so for me,
So,
that's always been my strategy.
well, that's great. So what I hear you say is that for the first quite a few years, to include your military career, you just felt like you didn't fit in to anything. You were the square peg round hole type of
Yeah, I
person
was a
trying to,
terrible soldier,
right.
but now I do all the things that I should have done as a soldier. I do them now as a civilian, and they help so much. And I kind of wish I'd played the game a little more.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to adopt. I didn't want to assimilate yet. I
Fair.
was still young and prideful.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think a lot of that probably came with aging and maturity, seeing the world for what it is versus what it could have been. And I also think that, in my opinion, it took you just this long to find your actual place in the world. Like, I feel like now you are probably in the best role that you could be in outside of being a father, and a husband. I feel like it's taken you this long to find that place, to find your place in the sun.
And there was a point before the last promotion where I was really pushing for it, and I got passed over a couple times. And I
Hmm.
said, what is my goal? I said, my brothers were like, man, I can't believe you're not making more. I can't believe that. And when I started with this company, they were paying the least of anybody in this town. Completely. It was less than I made as a teacher. It was bad. So in the first year and a half, they did 2 market value adjustments because they were like, we're going to start losing some people. It's bad. And so they started giving you little raises, and you're like, $5,000 more. You can do that? You should have done that at the beginning. And so they gave me 2 of those. And then since then, I've had two promotions, and now I'm at a point salary wise where I'm like, "Are you sure you're gonna give me that? Like, I was just playing video games the other day. Like, what happened?"
Fair.
It's wild, but I set a goal for myself, and I said, salary wise, I'll be happy with even here. And right now, I'm here.
Hmm.
But I said, this is fine. And then I'll focus my climb not on just vertical. I'll start looking side to side and say, what's the best fit for me? What's comfortable? What actually makes me happy? What can I come home with at 4 or 5 o'clock and not be like pulling my hair out and yelling at my kids and stuff? So, I mean, it takes a lot, but you got to decide for yourself, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? Is it just more and more money? I have a brother that made my salary in a weekend. The other brother, I haven't mentioned
Hmm.
him. He made my salary in a weekend. And so he's still bringing in so much money, but he's also saying, hey, man, kind of wish I'd done this, kind of wish I'd done this. And said, I believe that. And so I'm looking a little earlier on going, you know what? I'm getting a little older. It's like, what do I want out of this? What do I want 40 to look like? What do I want 45 to look like? What am I scared 50 is going to look like? And starting to set these expectations and saying, dude, if I want something to be a little different, I'm going to need to start moving.
Hmm.
But I reached that salary goal and I said, dude, is this the role I want? And I just had to sit down with my boss the other day and I said, dude, I want to be doing DevOps for the rest of my career. And so I need you to help me get the tech skills to back that up. I need you to support me when I go for trainings. I need you to make sure that anytime I need hands on to learn some new equipment and some new software, I need you to give me that time. And he goes, dude, I'll make sure. Because down the road, we're going to need a new release manager. You know, the guy in charge right now is pretty old, so he'll be retiring at some point. He's like, dude, I'd love for you to step into that role. I said, good. Give me a few years. Let me get it under me, and I'll get going. And so it's been a matter of having to take that initiative and say, all right, let's be a little more proactive because you're not a kid anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that another unorthodox thing that you've done, especially now, is you've stayed in one company for this long, especially on our tech side. It's not uncommon for 5 years you bounce to
Oh
a
yeah.
new company, and then you potentially come back. But a lot of times, as developers or DevOps or anybody in tech, heck, I even did tech sales, and a lot
Mhm.
of a lot of times, even those salespeople, they will move from tech company to tech company, and then they'll come back, and then market adjustments occur as well. So yeah, it's different also to hear that someone who's been in tech for this long stayed at the same company that you have for.
Two reasons for that.
Mhm.
There are two reasons for that because I had dolled up my resume and I made it look great. And I showed all the things I've been doing. I had a one pager and it was just so good and so strong. And I talked to my brother. He jumped after a year and a half at one point, and then before that, he had done 3 years. And he made some good moves, and he got himself from what started off at about 48 to upwards of 250. And I mean, he's just doing really well. But for me, I had my paperwork ready to go, and I said, I'm going to take a look. Let me see what's out there. I'm taking paternity leave when my first child was born. And I said, this is my time. I'm not going to say anything to anybody, but let me see what's out there. And I started interviewing. I started talking to a few people. And then everybody I talked to in the company that had been there a long time seemed happy. They seemed like they were wanting to stay. They seemed like, hey, it wasn't glamorous at first, but it pays off in the long run. And there's a lot of companies where you're like, I don't know what I'll be doing if I stick around here, but you were all miserable, or you see a lot of mid and high level ranks that are people that just came in from a different place, and so they didn't grow up with the company. And if you don't see generations of people growing and thriving at the same company, you start to go, this is a revolving door, isn't it? And I worked in a restaurant where the guy told me, he's like, dude, I don't care if you leave tomorrow. He's like, and I don't care if you're back next Wednesday. You have a job whenever, because we're just a revolving door. I said, all right, cool. And so that was like coffee shop. So I left and came back, did some coffee. But I saw people that were happy there, and it was really cool. And I saw people doing what I wanted to do, and I said, I can do that. But what actually sealed the deal for me was that my daughter had a heart condition, and she needed heart surgery right after she was born. And so for us, the name of the game became stability. I couldn't
Mhm.
leave, I couldn't change, I couldn't risk it. We couldn't afford to just all of a sudden drop our income by what I was making. It was too big of a risk at the wrong time. And so I said, let's stick it out. And when I came back from leave, I found out that my team of three was now two. It was just me and my boss. So I said, oh man, this would have been bad. But, that's on them, right? I wouldn't have owned that. That would have been on them. But I came back and stuck around. By the time the next kid came, I was like, I'm good, dude. I already know what my next project's going to be. I already know where I'm headed. This is good. And so I can see my career moving forward. And that transparency of what the next step looks like is really helpful because my wife has that too. She's like, I know when I'm getting promoted. I know when my raises are coming in and I can kind of ballpark what they're going to be. And so she's always known that. And it's made her feel super comfortable about staying. I just wish more people would be transparent about, hey, this is what it looks like 3 years from now. Here's 2 years from now. Just stick with us and you'll get there.
Right. I think that goes, it just depends on which company you happen to be with and if they can project out that far.
Yeah.
And I think that also stability of the company itself, not just
Oh, yeah.
her or you.
We're
but, you know.
gigantic. So there was no way they were going to go under. And they're doing big government contracts too.
So you've went through a lot of ups and downs, and there was definitely massive scare in your life. How did you get through all of that and like all of that uncertainty? How did you keep your head up?
A lot of it was easier for me having my wife as my partner in things. But that partnership for us was always, hey, we're in this, we're stuck in this, but let's keep going. And there was always someone to keep you afloat. And it's happened both ways. I mean, she's lost work at some points and it's been tough. And especially going through what we went through with my older kid, it's one of those things that you immediately know I'm not in this alone. We're both going through it. And so, being there for the other person, but also just kind of like being able to vocalize, hey, I need a second. And that's been one of the harder things to learn is how to say I need help. Just career wise, as an adult in general, I hate saying it. It's
Mhm.
worse than I'm sorry by 20 times. It's way worse. I need help means I have failed in my mind. Obviously not true, but to me they sound identical.
Okay.
And so being able to vocalize, hey, I need a second, it has been the only thing that's kept me sane, having two kids under 4. And so allowing each other to have that space to feel what you need to feel and to recover in whatever way you need to recover. And thankfully, I'm not like raging alcoholic or just like slamming tables and stuff. I tend to just have little controlled detonations off to the side. And everyone seems okay with me yelling at a room,
Hmm.
not quite at anyone in particular,
Fair.
but I do that quite a bit.
That's okay. But I think the most important part of that was you mentioned that you have a support system. Granted, it's you and your wife. Maybe there's other folks, but you do tend to reach out to other people as well. Like I've heard you bring up your brother quite a few times, um, and you do typically do this random call to people,
I do check ins. Yeah.
which which is kind of how this started. This episode I
Mm-hmm.
got booked because you just randomly called me one day and I did a check-in, which I appreciate, and I think that there's a lot of veterans out there who could use a check-in.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I called a buddy from back home that I hadn't seen in just decades. And I said, "Is this Richie?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm still." It's like, "Are you a firefighter now?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude, I'm a firefighter." I was like, "You were a pudgy kid with a guitar. What happened?" He's like, "I have a mustache now." I was like, "Doesn't answer all my questions, but it's closer." And I was like, "What are you doing? You got a family or whatever?" He's like, "Yeah, that one girl, I married her, dude. We got like 4 kids now." And I'm like, "What?" And so just checking in to see where people are, see how it turned out. It's rare that it turns into a, dude, if you need to talk, let's go out and have coffee. Let's take a second, man. It's definitely good to hear from you. If you're struggling, let's make some time. But it's good that people have someone to reach out to about that.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
other people are more willing than I to say I need help, but it's 10 times easier for someone to say, hey, do you need help? If you do, I'm here. And that just to open that door for somebody is huge.
I also feel like this is part of your mental health specialist background, where you may not recognize immediately that you're just calling people just to check in on them, but also there's a part to that where there's a bit of a relief, especially for some people who may or may not be going through something, and then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, Mike Carranza gives us a phone call and says, "Hey, how's it going? Just making sure that you know, you get your head up today."
I had a young guy in Afghanistan. I would check in with him. We had originally met in the clinic and they decided, hey, someone should check in on him regularly. It's like, yeah, I'll go. And so he worked down the street on the base, working on some vehicles that had been doing route clearance. It's a good deal. It's what is it? Reliable business stuff. It's
Job security.
job security. There you go. So he's doing that, but I would come by and a couple times a week I'd say, "Hey, Sergeant, mind if I take your guy for a walk? Just kind of talk and check in on him, behavioral health." He'd say, "All right, yeah, 1 second." So we just go out on a stroll, I guess. But we would check in, and dude was
Long
awesome
walks on the fob.
to meet his friends. Yeah, dude, long walks on the fob for sure. I'd take him to the Green Beans, get some coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, after a while, I mean, he'd bring buddies in, and they'd get to know me, and I'd see them in the gym. We'd hang out a little bit, and it was just more people that got familiar with behavioral health as a resource and as a dude with a face. And
Yeah.
so it got to the point where I'd be in the gym working out with my sergeant, and I'd turn around and I'd see somebody go, like, he recognized me, and I said, "Okay, it's cool. I'll respect his privacy." And then I just hear, "That's my anger management guy." Just yelling it out. I was like, "All right, hey, how's it going, man? I'm just over here. If you need something, let me know. But you have a great day, all right?" So I just
Fair.
have to do that. But it's always good to just open a door for someone, honestly. Just letting them know if you need something, don't even know what it is yet. Just let me know. Hey, I need something.
Yeah.
Some time, some coffee, just a minute away from kids. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up with this last question. What's one thing that you learned in the Army and you still do to this day? Clearly, it wasn't make your bed and get up on time.
No,
But
no, no. My
for
wife
you,
makes the bed. And she actually gets upset because she'll make the bed and she'll wait till I get out of bed and she'll go and make it. And I'll sit back down and put on my shoes and mess with it. And so she's like, "I made it." It's like, "That's go ahead. You can do it again, right?" But I still walk like this everywhere.
Okay.
It's weird. Somebody called me out at Code Up for it because like I'll hunch forward and I'll walk like crazy faced and I'm just like stern, but I still have that over my head that people approach me and start talking about life and it's like, "What's up?" But I'll get a bit burger at Burger King and someone will just be like a minute later it's like, "So my sister and her kids moved in with me," and I was like, "I asked for a cheeseburger. What are we doing?"
You just got one of
But
those.
I should have stayed in the field, right? But honestly, it's really that though, that it's the goals and it's the nothing happens unless you get up and get moving. There's so much of you can talk about it, you can plan it, and all those stupid times where everyone looked back and all the young guys only, we would look back and say, "There's a better way to be doing that right there." All the older guys would just look at you and say, "Make a chain." You say, "What are you talking about?" And you'd stand there like idiots in a line, 30 people trying to move one box. And you're like, "This has got to be the worst, most ineffective thing." And you're sitting there like, if I were in charge, I had all these things. And it's like, just get it done. It's not efficient. It's not pretty. You're not going to look awesome and clever. And they're not going to come give you an award for it. But the work got done. And we can start tomorrow getting more stuff done. But it's absolute insanity to paralyze yourself trying to make plans. And this is how I want to do it. I'm going to make sure it's just get moving. Get started. It's insanity to look at myself at 36 and say, "I'm going to get fat to a point where I'm going to be like, oh, I got to work out now." My wife tells me, she's like, "You can start whenever you want." And so the idea that you're waiting for motivation to hit you instead of just saying, "Dude, get moving." If you're not motivated a day at the gym, cool. You had a bad day at the gym. That's absolutely better than the 40 chicken wings you just ate, you monster.
They say that the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is right now.
Absolutely.
Mike, I appreciate you coming on, being the very first guest.
We did it.
We did it, man. All right. So we're going to sign off. Ladies and gentlemen, talk to you next time. Bye.
Take care.